Hello everyone, Peter's here and so are the things that I like. Today I will be taking you for the third part of our Israel journey and it's to Bethlehem. So here we go. It is said that over 1 million people visit Bethlehem every year, and to be honest, I believe that number because even me, totally non-religious person, I went there, I wanted to check it, I wanted to see it, I wanted to touch the stone where Jesus Christ was born. So even if guy like me wants to go there, no wonder a million other people wants to go there as well. The main tourist attraction in Bethlehem is the Church of Nativity. Now, for us from Israel, in order to get there like smoothly without problems, we booked a tour through the Abraham hostel, which I mentioned in the previous video, and it was pretty smooth. The meeting point was in front of the hotel. I think it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. There was a small minibus, tour guide, they picked us up, drove directly in there, explained us lots of things alongside the way, and basically the tour starts at the end of the street that's called the Star Street. Now, the Star Street is very important from the historical point of view because it is believed that it is the very same street that Joseph and Mary has been walking down when they were heading towards the Nativity Grotto. To support this fact is actually very simple because, as nowadays the small villages grows alongside the road, the same way it works back in ancient times. So the Star Street was actually the only street in the Bethlehem. So to believe that it was the very same street is actually pretty easy. On the other hand, as the street was being rebuilt, broken down, rebuilt, broken down, it might shift it left or right, but hey, you know what, for the purpose of the story, it's pretty cool. As you walk down the street, you can see the beautiful architecture of Bethlehem, and there is loads of shops, but unfortunately, I think pretty much all of them are closed, maybe except one day a week, but it's due to the lack of tourism, especially because of all the whole conflict situation. I think since 2008, 2009, something like that, the visitors of Bethlehem just weren't coming that often, even though still 1 million people visit it every year. It didn't pay off for the business, and lots of people actually has left Bethlehem for work outside, so unfortunately you won't see many of those shops open. But once you reach the Church of Nativity, the story will become much more interesting, and it starts right in front of the door. As you can see, the doors on the video, they are pretty small, I think just 1.2 meter, so you have to bend down in order to get through. If you look a little bit up, you can see two shapes, one medium size and one much bigger, and those are the shapes of the previous entrances. As the times were passing, the doors were made smaller to prevent people from riding horses directly into the church, which can sound pretty absurd today, but back in those times, it seems to be a pretty common thing to do. You might think that the doors has lost its purpose because people nowadays don't drive the horses in, so why they did not make the doors bigger? Well, there is another reason. In order to get in, as I mentioned, you have to bend down. And in order to do that, you have to leave your pride and ego outside the church. And for that reason, the door has claimed a name, the Door of Humility. Now, I don't remember exactly, but if it was on the previous doors or on the facade or maybe inside on the wall, but there used to be beautiful colorful mosaic. And with that mosaic, there are two very interesting stories. The first one, probably the most important story, is that the mosaic has contained the three wise men, or so-called Magi. And they were Persians, and they brought the presents for baby Jesus when he was born. Now, back in 614, so we're talking about period of time 600 later, there was an army from Persia entering the Holy Land and destroying all the churches. But when they reached Bethlehem and they entered the church and they saw the beautiful mosaics and they recognized the Magi from Persia who visited Bethlehem 600 years prior to this army. For that respect, they left the church untouched, they turned the whole army away and they walked away without destroying the church. Now for me, this is pretty cool story, to be honest. 600 is different. All the church is destroyed except this one, just because of the mosaic. The second part of the story is pretty sad, because we don't know when, but several hundred years ago, the mosaic has been moved, and it was taken apparently to Jerusalem for some type of conference or meeting. I don't know, that's what we've been told. But unfortunately, the mosaic has never returned and appears to be lost. Now, I don't know how much this is true, but if the mosaic was destroyed or was simply sold to a private owner, I don't know, it's pretty shame. I would love to see it. The inside of the church is fairly impressive. It is currently under reconstruction, but believe or not, that actually brings more positives. For instance, inside we have several columns, and those has been cleaned from smoked stains, because over the centuries they were totally blackened from incenses, and the paintings on them were covered, so for generations people were not able to see them. But us, luckily now visiting in 2018, we could actually see them uncovered, and we visited like 2 months after they were cleaned. One of the columns has been left still blackened, so you can actually see the massive difference between the clean one and the totally blackened one. The queues to get under the church and to see the place where Jesus was born are massive, and it takes over an hour to get down there. Especially during Christmas, it's apparently manic. But to our luck, our guide used the time to explain us things about the architecture and the history of the Church of Nativity. You will have plenty of time to look around, and you will see beautiful restored mosaics all over the walls. They were made back in 12th century under the Crusader rule, and the mosaics on the south and north wall are emphasizing the agreement between Greek and Latin churches, while mosaics on the eastern side are devoted to the New Testament, and the western wall mosaic, a tree of Jesse and all prophets who spoke of the coming of Messiah. As you will approach further down, you will find the altar that has staircases from both sides leading down to the Grotto of Nativity. Even though I am not a religious person at all, I could still sense the seriousness in the air from the people who were coming down there, and how important the whole thing was to them. And yes, even I touched the small stone wall through the 14-point star hall, and I have to say it's a weird feeling. The stone inside is very smooth and appears to be a little bit slimy on touch. But also please don't ignore the fact that being that same place or not, since it is a dark and wet place and millions of people around the world touched it before you, it is ideal place for bacteria. So after touching the stone, do not put your finger in your mouth, and if you have little children, make sure you will wipe their hands. Now there is an addition to the Church of Nativity, and that is Church of Saint Catherine. I think it was built back in 17th century. This place is real media star because it is the exact church from where the Christmas midnight mass is being broadcasted every year all over the world. But our story doesn't end here just yet. Not at all. There is one more religious site I want to show you, and it is called the Milk Grotto. You can find it down the south from the church after a short walk, and there is few interesting facts about it. This place is sacred not just to Christians but Muslims alike. According to the tradition, when Mary and Joseph were fleeing Herodes' soldiers, a drop of Mary's milk fell upon the stone and turned it white. Due to this fact, it is believed that if you mix the powder from the church chalk stone with a food and you will keep praying to the Lady of the Milk, you will be able to conceive a child despite having previous problems. Or, if your child is already on the way, your own milk will be richer in quality and quantity. And this fact is supposedly to be supported by thousands of letters from mothers from all over the world who claim they were able to conceive a child after visiting and praying and consuming this chalk from the church. After we left the church, we've been taken to a small part of the city where you could buy some handcrafted souvenirs, and even though they were really beautiful, I personally didn't pick anything. Before we travel to Israel, obviously we've done our research and we're trying to learn about the sites that we want to visit. And as we were studying the materials, we come across something that's called the Separation Wall and Banksy's Hotel. So to give you a brief explanation, Bethlehem is lying directly on the line between Palestine and Israel. Now, if by any chance you don't know, there has been war conflict between Palestine and Israel for decades, and hundreds of people have died on both sides. And unfortunately, despite the fact that we are living in the 21st century, as it seems the best peaceful solution how to sort of like control this conflict so far has been just to build a massive concrete wall alongside the border and separate those two nations from each other. So now in the second part of the video, I will show you what the separation wall actually is, what is the so-called Wall of Hotel and why it's famous, and what people who live in Palestine and work in Israel have to endure every day in order to get back and forth through the checkpoints. So stay tuned. In order to experience the Wall of Hotel and the whole separation wall experience, we had to leave our tour because visiting these sites wasn't part of our book tour. So in one moment we were part of the tour visiting the Bethlehem, and a few minutes later we were totally alone in Palestine with just brief explanation from our guide how to follow the wall and how to reach the checkpoint. At the beginning it was a little bit scary because we did not know what to expect, but as we were walking alongside the wall and we were passing other tourists and groups, we started feeling much safer and everything was pretty much smooth and easy. To give you roughly idea how the whole land actually works, we've been told there are 3 zones. Let's call them ABC. The zone A just purely for Israeli people, the zone C purely for Palestinian people, as I believe that's Palestine itself, and the zone B is the zone that both sides can freely enter. Now, by the law, Israeli people are not allowed to go into the zone C, which is for Palestinians, and that's because of the political and safety reasons. Now, Palestinian people should not be able to go to the zone A, but apparently they still do. Even though I think when we were using the minibus, just going through in order to Bethlehem, we were able to see lots of cars with Palestinian license plate passing around and getting through. I don't know exactly how this whole thing works, but the impression from it that you visiting a country that's being separated into zones and some people are not allowed to go in that zone or that zone is just, it's tough. And when people ask me back here in England how I feel about Israel, I always said it is an experience in many ways, and big part of it is thanks to this. So after walking about 20 minutes, we reached the Waldorf Hotel. The lodging is hotel, museum, and standing protest with gallery, providing a short distance view on the actual wall. The museum is pretty packed with facts, and it is explaining how people were suffering from the wall being built across their lands, houses, or roads. So almost overnight, people lost homes, land, or even a way how to get to work. During viewing the museum, there was a phone ringing on the wall. I picked it up, and actually I did not expect anything from it. I just thought I'm messing around. But there was actually a voice record saying, "Good evening, my name is," I don't remember the name, "and I am military officer. Your house will be hit by a rocket. You have less than 5 minutes to evacuate." When I heard that, I had a goosebumps. I was shivering. If the voice record was authentic, I can't even imagine how stressful the whole war must have been for people. One thing is when soldiers are fighting on the frontier, but if you have to wake up in the middle of the night and you have to evacuate your whole family out of your home without clothes, without anything, and you have to run as far as you can because your house will be hit by a bomb in 5 minutes, there is nothing I can say about it. It's just pure horrific emotion. After we left the hotel, we had about 30 minutes walk ahead of us before we were actually able to manage to find the checkpoint. And to get through the checkpoint, it is pretty cold experience as well. You walk through a labyrinth of stone concrete walls, and if not for a lady who was going to work, we might have easily to pick the wrong path. The check control itself was actually pretty alright without any problems. Soldiers at the border were nice and we get through very swiftly. On the other side, we picked the bus that was able to get us back to Jerusalem. And that was pretty much it for the day. I have to admit that the biggest emotional impact on me had definitely the separation wall. I don't know the whole story about the conflict. I read just bits and pieces, and I would just wish that people in 21st century would be able to just sit down and find I'm not saying perfect solution, but a solution that would start reimbursing people for what they endure, what they suffer, what they have lost. And yes, you can't reverse time, but you can build up the future, and you can build up trust, and you can build up relationships, and you can reimburse the generations that are living now and for the future generations as well. So maybe one day some solution like that will come and those two countries will cooperate and they will become great unity. I can only hope for that. And I can wish them the best, because as far as I know, both countries are beautiful, and it's really shame that this whole thing is happening. So guys, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you like it, and I will see you next time with my last part from Israel. So, ciao.